Well, hello, all you wonderful, wonderful people. Here we are for yet another Sunday Night Live drawing session. 20 seconds in. I'm going to see if anyone's around. Looks like one person's here, which is always better than no one. Two people. Awesome. I haven't looked closely enough to check for vagina dentata, but in fact, witches are very, 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 very spooky. Delightfully so. I hope by spooky you mean clear in terms of the audio. All right, you got 6 people. I think it's a good point to start. You know what? This is the book I'm going to talk about, but I think there's something else I should talk about here at the top of the session. So this time last year, I had already been starting to promote the first Coven campaign on Zoop at the beginning of August, and of course today is the 1st of September. And I think in terms of the updates as we got along, there was like delays in getting it printed. There were delays in shipping. There's apparently been delays in offloading the book when it arrived in North America. And there's a backlog at Zoop's fulfillment center. And to me, this past week was the... Hey, Charles, how you doing? This past week was the last week I thought I could hold off promoting a new campaign for October and actually have a shot of giving it enough PR time. Just a reminder, so what happened last year is I did a whole bunch of reposting on social media of the witches I'd done previously. All of September, every day of September, I posted a brand new witch drawing, like just a headshot. That became possible rewards for the campaign when it launched in October. And of course, all the way through October, I did another batch of 31 witch drawings. Zoop headquarters finally got back to me Friday saying that despite fulfillment saying they were going to ship out the books last week, they still haven't started shipping them, and that they were going to get to it this week. Which puts me in a bit of a bind because I really feel that we've lost a month on what we had last year in terms of PR time for Coven. And I feel Tales from the Witch House, which is going to be a whole bunch of comic stories, is a bigger, and it's got a lot of color, so it's going to be a bigger, more expensive book in terms of production. And I want it to be somewhat affordable still, so the goal has to be bigger. Losing what I was hoping to be like a 4 or 5 month lead-in turned down into essentially less than a month is just not enough. It's just not enough. It's hamstringing the second book. And so what I'm going to do is I am still going to do a Witchtober. I got a story already laid out, ready to go. It's one of the stories that will be in Tales from the Witch House. It would have been one of the ones regardless, but there will be no campaign this year for the second witch book. I'm going to have to push that to next October. And that's heartbreaking to me. I mean, there's the idea maybe I could do the campaign later, but I think the full month of daily posting of October is integral to help grow the campaign. So the crowdfunding campaign for Tales from the Witch House will be next October. But as upset as I am, because I mean, there's some delays on my end. There's some delays on. I mean, you do international printing, there's going to be issues. There's nothing you can do about that. I just didn't think it would be like 3-4 months of extra delays. So I don't want to launch the crowdfund for the next campaign when the book's barely delivered. And honestly, just because they said they're going to deliver it this week, so many delays have happened. I'll only believe it when I start hearing people have the book in their hand. So I'm still going to have a Witchtober. We're going to have a landing page on Zoop for Tales from the Witch House for next year, starting this month, October. So people will be able to sign up for notifications as I post daily through all of October. And the benefit is there's 3 stories. There's no way in hell I'd be able to finish for the book this year. But with the book being pushed off effectively a year, those 3 stories would be added. So instead of 6 stories, it's going to be at least 9. It might be more if I come up with more. So it's going to be a bigger book than the first book. More stories, some scary, as Anson was wondering about. Some scary witch stories, some fun stories, some weird stories. All of them are designed to be entertaining stories at all, but each of them are also kind of trying to accomplish 2 things: be an entertaining story and build the world, so the readers have a better idea what the witch world's like. So, and on top of that, there is going to be more long-term marketing for this. So at the end of this year's Witchtober, we're going to see a return of Witchy Wednesdays, which instead of being a brand new witch drawing, it is going to be a production diary for Tales of the Witch House. So every Wednesday, you're probably going to see either some pencils, some inks, some concept art for the project. So I'm going to have a nice year-long promo cycle going for Coven 2 to next October. But on top of that, I'm going to be adding an additional day of the week as a promo cycle, because I've mentioned it before in a few streams. The next book I wanted to do was the book coming out this spring, or next spring, I should say. We Bring Only Death, which is my Viking horror book. So instead of that being the 3rd book I crowdfund through Zoop, it'll become the 2nd. By that point, I have to assume everyone has their copy of Coven, and since that was already in development, already in production, I'm going to start a similar weekly promo on Thursdays. I might call it Thorsdays, because that's a very easy Norse connection for a Norse horror book. And then we're also going to have a similar several month countdown to the launch of We Bring Only Death. I'm going to be talking to the Zoop people about what month in the spring they feel is best to launch that book, and so that's it. So that's what's happening. In fact, I'm considering it for it's short notice, but I might actually shift over to doing Witchy Wednesdays and Thursdays this upcoming week, because I have material to share. So there's no reason to delay until the end of Witchtober to launch those. So I can use the Witchtobers leading up to October to tease the coming month of the short story being told, and as well as lead up to start getting people ready for We Bring Only Death, or what I hope is the first volume of We Bring Only Death, because I got way too many Viking horror stories to tell. So that's the big news. I figured I'd tell you guys first. I'm going to be posting about this probably not tomorrow, because tomorrow is actually Labor Day, and if you're a good Canadian like me, on Labor Day, you really try not to work. I'll probably do some drawing anyway. That's play for me. But starting on Tuesday, I'll probably announce the delay, and then Wednesday we'll have our first Witchy Wednesday. As the countdown comes down, I'm probably going to do like a branded logo for that, so they'll show up with the art and a couple of scrolls through it to show teasers and explainers. And and then Thursday will be Thursday, and so I hope that's not well, I mean, deep down I really hope it's hugely disappointing to everyone who's a fan of the Coven book. But I think the amended plan means that the production schedule will be a little easier on me. It'll be a bigger book next year, and I'm kind of eager to start drawing some really good old-fashioned Viking horror soon too. So yeah, so that's the news. That's the news. It's just taken too long to get the book out the people. I mean, considering this was, I think, shipped out to the printer in February. I have to double check. I think it's we were all wrapped up and signed off in February, if not that, beginning of March. And here we are in September, and it still hasn't been shipped out. So that's a lot of international delays, and it's something I'm going to have to be more mindful of with We Bring Only Death. The goal being now is to have the book as print ready as possible, if not during the campaign, by the end of the campaign. So as soon as we have numbers, everything goes out. And that should be good. Also, I'll be doing things like the tip-in sheet. I'll be doing that during the campaign. You lead up to the campaign. So the goal is to have is everything done, or as close to it as possible by the time the campaign launches. And then everything's sewn up by the time we're done. We actually get a real sense of the numbers, so it can literally go straight to the printer as soon as the campaign's done. And that way, it should be. I can't see this level of delay happening on 2 books in a row. So that means We Bring Only Death should be out in people's hands before I do Tales from the Witch House the following October. And then hopefully that'll be how things will go from now on. There'll be We Bring Only Death 1, Tales from the Witch House, then a completely different Viking horror story. It's like an anthology title, but each issue is going to be each volume is going to be a standalone long graphic novel dealing with Vikings and horrific supernatural things. So that should be 2-3 years worth of work at minimum. All right, so that's the update. And here I'm going to talk about. I have one book in front of you here. It is Framed Ink. I think I ran across this in the Labyrinth bookstore years ago. I saw the really stark pen and ink drawing here, and I had to pick it up because that's such a ballsy drawing. And it's by Marcos Mathieu Mestre. I'm probably badly mispronouncing that, despite having French heritage. And this is it's this wonderful overview of composing images to tell a story. Has a nice introduction and general thoughts on composing shots. I mean, just look how brilliant this is framed. It's brilliant framing action. And he's all digital. It doesn't look it. I love it. Just looking at thinking about how you frame shapes, how you reveal stuff to the viewer. And this applies to comics as much as TV and film and video games. Intent for your compositions, which is great. And he's using a lot of film terminology, which helps like when you're learning about the process. And he takes a step forward. He actually has a section on composing for continuity. So going from one image to the next to tell a story, shapes and compositional elements again. He really gets it. Once you get past the drawing level of wanting to work in comics, I would say this is an amazing resource to how to think about how you're including and framing the action in a comic book. There he's talking about the 180 line, which is more important, more talked about as being important than it really is. It's important. It helps follow movement, but if you can tell the story without it, you don't need the 180 line. But anyway, he's got a wonderful section on the graphic novel, character design. I think he's a little thin on the ground with this section. It's there, but I think Scott McCloud and Eisner do a somewhat better job. But I mean, it's an add-on to a book about visual storytelling, just with some exceptions, basically. Beautiful drawing. Love this book. And I was a fan. He's got a beautiful graphic novel out there. I can't remember the name of it. I couldn't find it when I looked for it earlier. But that's Framed Ink 1. He's produced Framed Ink 2. Frame format, energy, and composition for visual storytellers. Same guy, of course. And he even gets more in depth. So here he does a recap using the frame space and energy within. So basically how to use the actual frame of your panel or your storyboard to help tell the story. Goes over composition again. Composition flow, he includes the exercise, really cool. Composition flow, dealing with crowds. Subtle step between different frame ratios, against the grain, vertical theme. That's basically, mucking about with the panel layout, so you're not doing a grid. He again touches on to graphic novel, the panel in the graphic novel, and processing gallery index. And it's full of his beautiful, beautiful art. He talks about how he's using the frame, how he's moving the action, how the eye moves to tell the story. It's really, really, really good stuff. This is him taking it to the next level from the first book. Some of the stuff doesn't apply to comics, but you know what? Knowing it does not hurt you one bit. It's just really solid, and the additional colors and graphics like this to explain what he's talking about, it's really good because these are a step up in the conceptual level of visual storytelling. I mean, it's just gorgeous, gorgeous. It's wonderful to see someone who knows what they're talking about talk about it in this level of depth. So it's just great stuff. But this isn't it. There's more. He did a book called Frame Perspective Volume 1. So he knew he was doing 2 books. Technical perspective and visual storytelling. So not only is he just going into perspective in depth, but using perspective as a storytelling tool. It's Design Studio Press, of course. And I actually used to teach perspective to the point where I got every single book on perspective I could find. And I learned some arcane shit about perspective I will never, ever use because it's just too much. But he does a really good job describing the picture plane, how you see things in the picture plane, talking about surfaces, where the viewer is and how to show what the viewer is seeing for point of view stuff. Plotting out cubes for interior space and everything. I'm gonna slip through because I don't want to spend a whole chunk of a video where I was mopey about talking about perspective, which might lose people. Here he is putting out a really complex. See the way the buildings are rotating, and he just moves the vanishing lines for each floor. It's brilliant, and then he's also not letting go of compositional elements. It's just brilliant. More perspective stuff. Here's a cars in perspective. My God, I'm at the point where I buy model cars and I'll take pictures of them, so it's faster for me to sketch out the rough of the car than draw it in more detail. But gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. Perpetually gorgeous stuff. How to visualize stuff in perspective. How to force the perspective. Here he is using the perspective, that 1-point perspective, to really push the camera into motion. His details on perspective grids is great. Look at that cityscape, man. Look at that cityscape. Brilliant, beautiful. I actually have some digital, like sometimes when I do layouts, if I'm doing complex perspective, I have built some grids in Photoshop and I'll sketch on top of them. And it allows me to be looser when I'm sketching on top of an established grid. So then my perspective is generally accurate, but feels organic. So I really hate my stuff feeling too mechanical. Again, more perspective. Oh God, I love this. Okay, so looking down, this is kind of interesting. It's kind of close to, I'm doing a cover for Johnny Quest. And there's a naturally carved spiral staircase inside of a cool down fumarole, like one of those stovepipes in a volcano. That's what I'm thinking about when drawing it. And I just eyeballed everything. Here he is. He mechanically shows you how to do that rectangle or square based spiral staircase, and then he draws it. Look at that spread, man. Look at that. Got a couple of GIs, World War II era GIs. Got signal machines, headphones, a Luger. So they're killing it, German. Pretty cool. All the brickwork, exterior building stuff. Beautiful, beautiful work. Nice old rundown fantasy type building or historical. Here he is curving the perspective. Oh, it's not the curve. Sorry, it's not the curvilinear section. I think that's in book 2. This is just doing the circle in perspective, which is something I remember teaching. And he goes into further depth than I've ever teach. Look at this. Look at this building. Where's Tom Cruise? Tom Cruise is standing on this somewhere. So cool. Like all those curves, and they're all in accurate perspective, all the way going all the way down. And the lines are so clean, you know it's digital. So it's pretty awesome. And elevation plan and profile. That's pretty much on how you can take an overhead plan and actually translate it into three dimensionals. Talks a bit about lenses, which is good for a storytelling standpoint. Like, if you know the lenses better as an artist, you can talk to another artist who knows it, and then you can communicate better what you want. If you don't know the lenses, then you're not going to really know how you're warping perspective with the lens. And look, he actually draws a horse. Why does he draw a horse? I don't know. It's cool though. Notes on composition. Again, more notes on composition is incredibly important for comic books. But it says volume 1, right? And I'm not going to stop at 3 books when I can do 4 books. Oh my God. Look at that. Technical drawing for shadow, volume, and characters. So this is, if you absorbed all the perspective knowledge. Oh, here we go. Yeah, that's it. I got that somewhere. I just finally installed some new bookcases, so everything's going to get sorted. I've already found a whole bunch of books I thought I had to replace or lost, and I had already replaced, and I have doubles of some books. So I'm probably gonna, on my Patreon, probably have some contests for some art books soon. Shadows, not look at that. Look how beautiful that is. All that draw, and then allowing the silhouette to sit right against this, allowing that to make the gun pop, and then there's silhouettes inside a window. All this silhouette stuff, and it still works narratively. It's brilliant. I remember Marvel, Jim Shooter put in some stupid rules about, you can only have solid black in one plane and everything else has to be something else. It was really weird. Casting shadows. This is actually in college when we did it. We were supposed to do a project on something about perspective. Supposed to do something educational on perspective. So I took the whole casting shadows as narrated by the shadow. It was a very ugly comic book, but I got the facts right. So this is a fun thing. If you get your perspective set up mechanically, you can cast incredibly precise shadows. It's a great tool to have as a storyteller. Yeah, sun. What happens when you get the shadows going across from a distant point of light? Although, to be absolutely honest, if you're doing this, see, the sun is so far away from the Earth, it really doesn't have that sort of perspective effect. It's close to it, but what it is the sun is so far away that all the shadows are coming towards you in perspective, but they're not necessarily coming from that. It's more complex. It's more complex than he's presenting here. I should probably keep my mouth shut because it really, this is good enough. This really is good enough. Oh God, look at these gladiators. Shadows coming down, crossing a bench, down across the floor. Just love that. The way the perspective, all this perspective matches up. Shadow cast on the further wall is a little wider than the closer wall, right? And then suddenly that parallel shadow going like that is now going across the bench down through there. Just, he's really showing off his stuff here. And he shows you how he does it too. Brilliant. Showing you all the vanishing points and how he constructs everything. Characters in perspective. This is a great resource. He has a very kind of like 80s British style of drawing figures. Like, it reminds me of like Dave Gibbons and oh my God, who drew the first Dark Horse Star Wars series? Cam Kennedy. It has that vibe to me. He's drawing the mannequin. Not a big fan of that type of mannequin. It's too bulky, and then you have to redo a whole bunch of stuff. But he puts the information here on this mannequin so you can understand what you're doing with the figure in perspective. So it's really good for that. So as a learning tool, it's great. Here he is, just literally using a more simple. This is closer to the mannequin I use, and he's using that to develop the perspective. It's really good stuff. Holding objects, moving around, construction, prone figure or supine figure. Deep perspective, which is coming into play because for the Johnny Quest cover, it's an overhead shot looking down at Johnny and Haji as they come up the spiral stairs on the inside of this volcanic tube. Oh, look at that. Cowboy days, once upon a time in Hollywood. So good. shadows and characters. He super simplifies everything. If you super simplify everything, you can plot the shadows really, really well. Really good stuff. I love his use of shadows, like really super stark. I like my reflected light, so I get to use my Bernie Wrightson rendering. But this is so good. This is such a good resource. Like this is like, and here he is using photo reference, and you see what he does with it. Okay, it's great. He sees stuff in there, and he's able to translate it better because he understands the perspective. It's such a good resource. I would say that these for any professional, a young professional comic artist, and more notes on composition. Every young professional comic artist should have all 4 books in their library. Absorbing information, this will just make you a better storyteller and artist. So yeah, so these are the books for today's session. So I hope that was okay. All right, and so what I'm going to work on today, I figure I have 2 things I can work on today. The gas and my momentum on this went out this week when I realized that the books weren't going to ship. But this is going to be the cover for Coven Tales from the Witch House. So this is completely YouTube safe. Oh, what we got here? Well, that's what you start with the first book. You start with the first book. You take the principles he gets across there until you're comfortable with them. Then you pick up the second book. And when you're comfortable with the next level of stuff he's added to, it's like, I'm not saying get all 4 books at once, right? Get the first book, incorporate the knowledge you can glean from it into your own work. Then you get the second book, and then you expand your knowledge. You now have a better idea how to apply it to your work. And when you got that, you really want to get serious about getting your perspective right. Then you get frame perspective 1. And by understanding how you're translating 3D imagery on a 2D plane, because paper is a 2D plane, you'll have a better sense of like what's happening visually when you get to the more complex stuff about popping shadows across 3-dimensional forms. It really is. It's an aggregate level of learning. So you pick up 1, learn from 1. When you feel you've learned what you can from 1, pick up 2, same. Pick up 3, that really big fat book of perspective. Spend a year or 2 with it. Right? There's no need for you to pick up 4, unless it's at risk of going out of print. There's no reason for you to pick up the 4th book until you actually get that good of perspective. Right? And once you feel comfortable with that level of perspective, once that's absorbed into your working process, it's just it even when you don't use it, you'll visually know when it looks right. And that's important. The more important thing is for it to not look wrong. I remember rereading a John Byrne comic, and he did a drawing of something. I don't want to get into what it was, but he drew something, and I thought the perspective on it was amazing because it just worked. Few years after studying perspective in college, I looked at it, and it was utter garbage because all I could see were the mistakes. And I have to think about all of the artist friends of John Byrne at the time who probably looked at it and said, "Wow, he probably thought he got away with something there because it just kind of looked ass." At the end of the day, I'd much rather be Jose Luis Garcia Lopez and get everything right and not be as celebrated. I mean, I'm nowhere near Jose Luis Garcia Lopez than John Byrne, who was really, really hot, but didn't have much depth to the material in terms of his drawing ability. Yeah, so it's, what don't you like about it, Anson? What touches are wrong? The fact that it's not drawn yet? It's a bunch of books, a couple cats, Raven, naked witch reading a book. I figured that's that kind of works for a Tales from a Witch House. Oh, plus an old-fashioned gas lamp, beat up chair, bunch of pictures and stuff on the bookshelves. So if you see something wrong, please let me know. So I can work on this, but also I haven't had a chance to touch Etrigan since I did some more work. I think I showed it last week. I haven't touched it since then. I just mentioned. work aside here. I could even work on this session. I could even work on this. Because all it needs is for me to deal with bringing back the whitest parts and then pushing the darkest darks in. So this is something I work in this session too, but I kind of figured since this is this was supposed to be the launch of the Witch campaign, as it is, it's now the announcement of the delay of the Witch campaign. I figured it's still better for me to work on a Witch than not. Here we go. Okay, so Frazetta's in my artistic DNA, but a lot of artists are. Okay, I get you. Oh yeah. Everything's going to be rendered. I mean, I'm going to draw all these books, all the shadows hitting the books. There's a little like curio box, another portrait of another witch here. There's a plant. Here is a book being presented slightly different orientation. Yeah, there's going to be a whole lot of stuff in it. And there's another little plant here. It's a squiggle, but it's a plant. I can read it. And there's that kind of resting bitch face cat. Okay, now I understand what you mean. Yeah. So yeah, I think Frazetta's in my DNA. I don't think there are times when I'm thinking about Frazetta when I draw a woman, and sometimes I'm just trying to draw a pretty girl. So this case was I just wanted a big toothy smile. The faces are always cut up. For me, a Frazetta woman is a big part of it is showing off the hips in a certain way. And since she's seated, ghosts get sheeted. Since she's seated, we're not really seeing her hips. I mean, we're seeing the width of them, but we're not seeing her hips and her buttocks, which is kind of like a key Frazetta element. So yeah, she doesn't feel particularly Frazetta-ish to me. Thank you. Yeah, the hidden eyes way back at the start of all this was an affectation. I think I've gone into this a few times where, oh, this is something else I wanted to show off. I just noticed something I want to show off. But covering up the eyes, I did it in the very first drawing. I just thought it kind of added a certain grace and an anonymity to the witch. And then I decided to stick with it, and it became almost, it's now built in. I have an excuse for it. In one of the first stories, you see where the hats start. They start as something else. Get these shadows a little darker here. So yeah, the hats and not seeing the eyes are very important. For a banner I did 2 years back for Baltimore, because my former art rep lost my banner. No apology. They just said, "Oh, I can't find it." So fuck them. I did a witch, but she was wearing clothing, so I figured, well, if I'm covering up her bits because it's a public banner, I'm going to show her eyes, and I made her eyes just a little crazy enough for people to go, "Yeah, it's a good thing we don't see their eyes." So that was fun. So here's the other thing I wanted to show you. I ordered it on a lark. Now, drawing hands is really important in comics. You can tell when artists are hiding hands. They're far more important than feet. But and in these days, with a cell phone and your own hands, there's nothing stopping you from drawing good hands. You can pose them. I've actually gotten to a point of like getting a picture of my hand in a mirror to get exactly the reference shot I need for a hand holding a complex item. Like I'll hold it in my right hand, but in the mirror it could be a left hand, so I can take a picture of it and I don't have to flip it. But I saw an ad for these last year, so I had to order one. So it's from Japan. It's a little more fragile than I would like it in terms of like its connectivity to the base, but it's got a nice gooseneck like basing here, and it's fully posable. So every joint bends. Even have an alternate set of fingernails if I want to give it like a woman's fingernails. Every joint's completely bendable. Oh wow! See, the base came off again. It's like a pressure connection. It doesn't really connect well. I could glue it, but I'm afraid it would break once I glued it, and then I'd be kind of messed up. So the thumb actually rotates out, and it opens up here like the way the tendon here between your thumb and your index finger does. So that's really amazing. Fingers have a nice wide range of movement. Even the back, the way you can like kind of process the back of your hand. So it curves in. Well, let me put this back here. So it's pretty good. Not as much movement on this part. It kind of flares out a bit, but not as much as I think there should be, but it doesn't need that much. I mean, peace, dudes. Live long and prosper. Rock and roll. All the finger gestures. And it was a little fiddly to get to hold a pen last time I did this. Let's see if I can get to hold a pen the way I hold. So I hold a pen like this. So my middle finger is slightly underneath the pen, so I got to do that. Since there's ink in my fingers, there's not ink in the hand. See, it doesn't really have enough of a grip, right? It's a pressure plastic. I'm happy to have it. Oh, look, sort of holding on to it. Happy to have it. It's a toy as much as a resource, more than a resource, because with a cell phone and your working hands, assuming your hands work, like if I was missing a finger, I'd probably need to use this as reference. But I think it's a cute, it's got full wrist motion too, which doesn't really seem to make as much sense because of the way it's standing. But you can actually, do that stuff. So I guess you have it connect to the forearm so that you can draw it that well. So it's a cool toy. I think it's a very cool toy. It's going to look nice on my shelf and it'll collect the right amount of dust for a lot of these things. They're pressure joints. If you use this a lot, the joints will wear out. It's plastic, and it's plastic on plastic pressure that keeps it from moving around. There's no springs or anything like that, which would probably make this cost a fortune. As it is, I think it's like $150. You might be able to get cheaper in a place like Alibaba or AliExpress or Temu, maybe even. I don't know. I don't go to Temu. The other thing about the knuckles are a little different. My fingers get a little thicker at the knuckles, and these flare very, very slightly. These are slightly more, I think, feminine hands than masculine hands. Because I mean, I got big chunky hands. This is a very, very slender hand, and unless you realize that here, see the inside grooves here, right? Inside grooves there. That's where it's supposed to match up. So that's where the palm is as long as the fingers, because that's an important proportion element. But if you do it based in the back here, you got your palm here, then suddenly the fingers are really long. So you have to understand that the webbing for the fingers that you see here is at this point here, right here. So that line there is where the webbing is. So if you're using this as a reference, very important to learn really quickly that the finger webbing is hitting those points on the inside of the fingers. All right. So this is a cool toy. I love the way that thumb can like just fold right in just the way it does. That's a really nice, it's really well designed. Pre-cell phones, this would have been invaluable. This would have sold billions. I think it would be like those really crappy wooden hands they sell. They would have sold like 10 times as many of these as they sold those hands. And they probably would have sold so many, they probably would have made these out of more durable materials and probably figured out another way to make them lock a little bit, maybe with some wires and stuff. But I think it's a cool little toy. I'm happy to have it. This little piece here, which if you tighten it to the gooseneck properly, it actually pushes itself out of the connectivity here. It barely stays on. I don't want to force it, but yeah. So it's like it's a little tricky on the base, but like once you get in a position, then you put it on the base, then you're probably fine. So the base is a little dodgy. And it's also, I mean, it's anchored on one side, so if your hand's going over here, it's going to fall over. So got to be careful with that. So I'm storing it like this, so the center of weight is over the middle of the plate. That's what I'm doing with it. So that's my cool toy. Let's see if there's any chatter I got to address here. evil smile. Yeah, the evil smile's there on purpose. Yeah, that box, I was convinced it was shattered. The box, the pictures are still on Facebook, but now they're lost to way back in the memory hole. They'll show up like in a year. I'll go, oh, I remember that. And the box it was in was actually a little damaged too. It was just enough damage to not hit the two layers of plastic holding it in the middle of the box. So that was that type of level of damage. Especially considering how expensive these things are. Did not want to have to, I probably would have gotten a refund easily, but still. So yeah, so if anyone has a preference, they want me to work on the etrigan again, I'll pull that aside and pull out the paints and finish that up, or I'll just keep inking on this piece because I wouldn't mind having this piece done soon, so I can actually have this on the landing page for Zoop, and I can start promoting the campaign for next year as soon as possible. Always got to be a little careful when I'm doing darks on top of darks on top of darks. I also have to make sure I don't have any ink on my hand. Okay. Be great if there's like a little, if anytime someone made a comment, there's like a subtle little bing, so I know to look up. I get worried that I'm like ignoring people's questions. So if you have any questions about what I talked about at the top of the show about delaying Tales from the Witch House for a year, please ask away. Again, on all my social medias, and in particular in Patreon, where I'm probably going to actually show more in development stuff than anywhere else. I'll probably be talking about this again and again, explaining it again and again why the change happened. But I think everyone can understand. It's like my reluctance to start another Zoop campaign when the other one's not in people's hands yet, even though it really looks like if they do as promised this week coming up, start sending out the books, that's great. And I think there's going to be some people who might be a little upset that I'm not going through with the campaign this year, even though the books are going out. But I already feel I've lost all of August. And when I say I lost all of August, I was already hoping I would have had June and July as PR time too. I just put it off announcing it because I was waiting for the books to be in people's hands. It's that important to me to make sure that everyone gets their books before I launch the next campaign. Or even really lay into starting to promote that campaign seriously. So by saying the campaign's now a year away, I feel a little more comfortable talking about it, because there's no way in heck that the book won't get delivered in that time. Plus, it lets me wrap up a whole bunch of other stuff. It allows me to open up commissions for people for Christmas a little earlier. And I was going to open up some smaller commissions in November. People were looking for like either to gift themselves or their friends some artwork. That's always a good reason to get a commission. But if I can open those up in October instead, the turnaround time becomes a lot more reasonable. It won't be that many. Just that I've already had a bunch of people asking me about getting commissions for that time of year, and it's too many things to juggle all at once. I was literally going to say no, can't even begin to think about that till November. But with the witch being put off, I'm still going to be working on it, but just not as intensely. And that means I can just get other stuff done too. More diverse life, if you know what I mean. Well, I hope you're enjoying yourself working on those cards. I gotta say, it's digging at those alien cards, which I just put up in on the web shop if anyone wanted to buy them. Um, Reminded me how hard it is to draw at that size. It was a real learning experience to draw at that size. Um, People who still work on sketch cards right now are like, "Ooh, you have my respect," because that's a lot of stress trying to get everything that and just for myself. So one of the things I do is if I'm drawing something I'm not comfortable with it, what I'll do is I'll draw it on a separate piece of paper like twice the size. And drawing it at twice the size allows me to catch a lot of mistakes, but has the extra benefit. If I draw something like an inch tall and I'm 90% right, it's going to look wrong because there's so little information. All that little bit of information there. As soon as that little bit of information is a little off, it's going to look a lot off. Maybe not enough to make it a bad drawing or like poor storytelling, but it's not doing the job to the degree I want it to do. Whereas if I take that same drawing and I draw it instead of 1 inch tall, I draw it 2 inches tall, and I still get it 90%. What happens when it reduces, it's going to tighten up. That little bit of mistake I made is going to shrink as well. So it's going to actually look closer, smaller, if that makes sense to people. So one of my tricks, because you scan everything, you always, at least I do. It becomes really, really easy to say, okay, I'm struggling with it at this size. I'll draw it bigger. It'll be easier to draw it bigger. I have more room to cover my errors. And when it reduces down even more, those errors are going to be harder to see. So that's been my approach for years, ever since I got access to a scanner. In fact, I think I did it occasionally before in the old days when I would do layouts at printed size. This is the thing a lot of us did. We draw our comic book layouts the size the comic's going to print. So we could do some reasonable amount of drawing, but we knew what it was going to look like finalized. And then we go to a Kinko's. It always seemed to be a Kinko's. And we blow them up to our drawing size for the art board and then lightbox them. And sometimes I'd go, you know what, that figure is really, really tricky. And I'd literally just blow up part of the page to be even bigger. So I could hit the trickier parts and then reduce it daily. Go back to the Kinko's, reduce it down, then lightbox it. And that was part of the benefit of laying out a whole book all at once. So then you knew exactly where the really tricky pages were. Yeah. Yeah. Fraser's amazing, isn't he? Oh my God. I've known him. I haven't been in touch with him for years. But we used to chat on, God, where do we, it might have been on DeviantArt as well as one of the UK writers who we don't talk about anymore, in one of his forums. And I loved his work. Loved his work a lot. I think he used to date. I don't want to say he used to be in a relationship with a Canadian artist too. So he was out here a bit more. Great artist, Fraser. Dun, dun, dun. Might end up going kind of like solid black with the chair right here in the shadow, because with the fishnet covering her hands, it might be harder to read with all the hatching back here. So I might go in with like a black paint marker and just make the shadows that much starker right here at this darkest point here. Same with the cat. Like if I can break the line weight a bit. If I go solid black here, the hatching will pop forward a bit. Yeah. Again, it's part of the benefits of like working in this style for a long time. You start seeing solutions of problems you haven't realized they're coming up yet. There's going to be a little bit of white paint effects everywhere too. And of course, there's going to be color, which will help. That'll all start, separating planes and stuff in terms of values and all that stuff. That's going to be a lot of scribbling. Hope you guys are in for the long scribble. Again, if you guys have any questions about anything so far, always, always happy to answer. Kind of jealous of you having Fraser Irving drawings. I don't have any Fraser Irving drawings. Although, quite honestly, in response to my posting a ghostwriter drawing this week, um, Joseph Linzer, creator of Dawn, offered to buy it, which was flattering as hell, but I suggested an art trade, and he said yes. So that's going to be cool. I'm going to do an art trade with the creator of Dawn, probably one of the premier cover artists in their industry right now too. That's I feel that's a coup. So even with the same value side by side, the cat still comes across, mainly because of solid black brushwork here. It kind of grays out a bit because of the type of pen I use, but it'll maintain itself when all the ink work's done, and when I start doing some little white paint touch-ups to make things flow a little bit better. I like my black cats to be really, really black. Oh, I saw something here. Hang on. I did. If you look back to the first year of Witchtober, I did do a lot of skin rendering, both in line and with when I got the rubber stamps with the rubber stamps. I find that they just look better when I leave the skin white, which is it's a bit of a affectation for black and white drawings. But it works, I think, in a lot of them. Sometimes my first impulse is to leave them unrendered now, So if I render the witch's body anyway, it's because it looks wrong, unrendered. But if you go through you're going to see that, or sometimes I actually have to render. Uh, this is more true with the second Witchtober than Witchy Wednesdays than this is the first Witchtober. I'm still figuring things out. Hey, draw Lady Death. I got to do a commission of Lady Death a couple of years ago, and I was kind of hoping at some point, Polito would tap me to do a Lady Death cover. I think I'd do a pretty good Lady Death. Which is a reminder, I should probably repost that since I nuked everything that was up on my Instagram when they said everything's going AI. I've been slowly reposting earlier work after I run it through Glaze, which makes it impossible for AI programs to harvest. Or not necessarily impossible, incredibly difficult to the point where it's not worth their time. It just puts more. And at some point, I'm going to start putting nightshade in everything I post. So if they do make the effort, it's going to poison their programming, which I'm all for. People stealing art, getting damaged software. And there's also the fact, at the end of the day, there's two really terrible things about AI in terms of like media. I think AI for developing into science, fine, absolutely fine. Use it to find solutions for cancer. Use it to find solutions for the environment. Everything you can, anything you can to try and like make us have better, safer lives on this planet. Absolutely. But if your use for AI is putting artists and writers and musicians out of business, I think you probably should die of butt cancer. I could be extreme in that opinion, but I mean, really, if your goal is to take the people who you now take for granted and underpay for everything that we rely on, and when there's a crisis, to make their lives harder, I don't have much in the way of sympathy for you. But beyond that, I think the bigger issue, and a more crisis level issue, is the fact that every prompt apparently burns through like a half liter of water in terms of cooling resources for these server farms. I mean, it's a massive, and just think that's every prompt, every single prompt burns through that much of our natural or limited natural resource on this planet. A lot of people go, water's limited. No, it's not. No, it's not. Water is very limited, especially drinkable water that we can easily access for things like cooling supercomputer setups, server farms. If anything, I think we should pressure governments to really pass legislation that these tech bros have to overcome. Like if you're going to do something that requires a massive amount of computing that does this sort of level of destruction to our environment, it better do something. It better have immediate beneficial results. Otherwise, it can't be sent to the public. I don't understand why things like Midjourney and all those other crappy AI programs, which do so much damage to the environment just by existing, should be allowed to make so little money that they make. I mean, they're all losing money. I think anyone who says that AI is making money is lying to you. They're like NFTs and crypto. All that stuff is dying a slow, painful death. Crypto. People talk about how crypto is going up in value. It's not. It's not really going up in value because not enough people are using it. Individual bits of crypto may have value to it because it's on a market for people who are desperate for crypto to connect. So you got rich people buying more crypto because they think they're cornering a market that doesn't even exist. Anyway, lecture over. AI can die when it comes to like stealing human jobs. Get that nice solid black, let that merge into that cat there. So it can get reflected light on the side of the cushion. This on camera, good. Thank you, Jim. Oh, sorry, you're following someone else. Sorry. I thought Jim already followed me. Very cool. Very cool. That's exactly it. In fact, I think I talked about it last week where I want to do like really really big sketchbooks. I have so much material. I have the whole food bank project. I've had all the sketches I've done since 2019, which is when I did my last book. That's 5 years of material. Instead of doing a slender little 68-page book, I want to do a nice volume. Maybe not hardcover. That may be a little too ambitious, but I think I got at least 200-page sketchbook of material. And if I looked a little bit harder, I could probably stretch it to 250, 300 pages. And in fact, that might be the stretch goals. So I might look divide it into tranches where it's like, here's the first 200 pages. That's what we'll launch with. We hit X. I'll have Zoop run the numbers. When we hit a certain amount of sales, does it make sense to add 50 pages of content? And everything else stays the same. The book gets a little bit heavier, but it's in the book. And so a stretch goal rewards everyone. So it might even more granular. Like, okay, so we started 200, we hit like 3,000 above goal, we had 20 pages. 6,000 above goal, we had another 20 pages. Do it like that until we use up all my material. I think that might be the best way to go. It would be, of course, exclusively no witch material because all the witch material has to go into the witch books. Um, no, honestly, saying that out loud, I realize that may not work. It won't be witch centric. I will not reproduce all the witch stuff, but there might be some witch pieces, like say my banner, which is witch related, that would go into a sketchbook. I think quite well. Let this go more dark here too. So yeah, the goal is get the Viking book done. Get most, if not all, of Tales from the Witch House done. And if they're both done and on schedule, then I'll talk to Zoop and say, okay, where should we drop the sketchbook? I'll let them, because they know their market better than I do in terms of like what appeals to people on their platform as a whole. So if I'm going every fall is a witch book, every spring is a Viking horror book. Maybe summer is the time. I think summer's a bad time. So maybe, and Christmas is a weird time too. So it's like I got to talk to my crowdfunding friends and find out like what's the best way to do this stuff. But I think that would also make the sketchbook a lot more affordable to sell at cons because it looks like I'm going to be returning to cons next year. I've had so many people ask. I worked on a project to try and get online artist alleys happening, and too many people are too excited about going back to real life cons. So I'm thinking of being really selective about what cons I'll do. Right now, off the top of my head, I'm thinking Chicago or C2E2. And Baltimore was really good a couple of years ago. I did Baltimore a couple of years ago, drove down with my son, and that was a wonderful experience. So I'd kind of like to do that again. Heroes World, it was a little surprised. I felt I was misled on Heroes a bit. I was told it's the like I say I didn't have a great time at this con, and so you got to go to Heroes. It's the artist show, and what I thought they were saying was that artists sell tons of work there. That wasn't it. What they were telling me is it's the show that the artists love going to because all the artists are there and you get to talk to everyone. And so initially a little miffed at that I didn't make massive bank at Heroes World because that's what I thought I was supposed to get. I had this amazing experience talking with all these artists, and like they had this wonderful after party that everyone got to. So I kind of want to go back there again. Shelton Drum's Heroes Con. So it's like that might be it. That might be it. That might be 3 shows. C2E2, Baltimore, and Heroes. So that's like early part of year, essentially spring, mid late summer, and then early fall. That feels like a nice triad to return to cons. So those might be the 3 I do. And if I go to them, then of course I'm going to have both witch books. At some point, I'll have Viking books. So I think that's be able to get new people supporting that, and also talking to other people now that everything delays. There's going to be things like promo cards. Like since I'm going to be wearing my new pentagram polo shirt that I bought specifically for promoting me and my witches, and since it's an inverted pentagram, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be like, that means Satan, which it doesn't. Um, and my saying it emphatically is not going to change a lot of people's mind. But if I have a little explainer card, like the history of the inverted pentagram and where it comes from, I think people will be like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm going to back your book and give you lots of dollars, and then I'll be able to retire on pentagram explainer cards. Thank you so much. It was. Oh, there we go. Dan must do Baltimore. I did Halcon. God, that's where I met Tim Seeley. I did Halcon so long ago. Oh my God. I think it might be like 8 or 9 years ago I did Halcon. I'd like to go back. It was really weird. I mean, it wasn't exactly what I would call a money-making adventure, but I love the people there so much. So I don't mind taking a little loss at a really good presence of a con. And they treated me well. They treated all the guests with respect, which is a rarity. If you're on Facebook and you follow one of my favorite artists, Larry Stroman, whose birthday it is today, he went out to a convention, and they were supposed to have him picked up at the airport. They didn't. He got picked up by his partner in crime from Tribe. Michael picked him up. They're having a drink after or dinner. I can't remember which. And the show promoter walked by him, talked to some people at the nearby bar, walked back to the table, dropped off the key, and took off. And Larry said something, and the guy turned around and basically told him to shut up. And Larry's like, what the hell? Goes to his hotel suite, and it's like some mold smelling little hole in the wall. We're talking Larry Stroman. He's been around forever. Alien Legion, X Factor, Tribe, Larry Stroman. Right? We're talking about a big player in comics. In history. I mean, it's like there's going to be lineups for his work everywhere, especially X Factor. I mean, it's like I love Tribe. I love the design work and the play in it. I don't think it delivered in a lot of ways what I expected from it, but I think that's most books don't deliver what you expect. But if they relaunch Tribe, I'm buying it again. I want to see what they do. But to be treated like that at a convention that invited you as a guest is inexcusable. And then I think about the places like Halcon, where they treated everyone who's a guest there incredibly well. I mean, that's the way it's supposed to be done. So yeah, I'd go back to Halcon in a heartbeat. All right. I saw his pictures with that beard. That beard's amazing. I mean, I thought I like my beard. I got a nice little trim. I think they call it the Nottingham. I think that's the phrase for my type of beard. But he's got this big wizard beard. Oh my God, I love it. It's impressive. Super impressive beard. Yeah, I don't understand. My Larry has been nothing but nice to me. He flattered the hell out of me. We were chatting on Facebook after the incident, talking about something else. And you talked about him and Todd Johnson talking about my work. And I mean, yeah, a lot of us have imposter syndrome, right? And we just assume, unless we're like a mega star and they're writing articles about you, that you're nobody. No one's going to really pay attention to you. And I got that. I mean, I know my spot in the world. Okay, but to hear him and Todd Johnson talking about my work, and it's like I'm going like, really? I mean, that kind of does my head in a bit, because I mean that's like finding out that Bill Sienkiewicz will say nice stuff about you when you're not there. And Bill is like such a nice guy, so of course he says nice stuff about people. But it's like you don't think you register that much because you're not on the level of fame as the people that you admired getting in. It's kind of fun. It's humbling and flattering as hell. Yeah, I can't imagine. I really can't imagine anyone having the balls. That con's dead as far as I'm concerned. There's no way in hell it recovers from like uh because Larry didn't say the name of the convention initially. I think he was just trying to be too much of a gentleman. But me and a few other people kind of basically said that anyone that treats a guest like with that level of disrespect doesn't deserve the protection of anonymity. So then one of Larry's friends shared the story with the name of the convention, and I believe that's what I shared to my wall on Facebook because it's like, well, unless they get rid of that guy, I ain't going. Why would I ever want to go to a show that treated Larry Strowman badly when they could have like treated him with the respect he deserved? It's disgusting. It's upsetting. But yeah, I have in the past talked of HellCon. HellCon treated me excellent. I give people warnings that it's not a big money show, but they treat you well, and I find that's more or less true. I find that some of the smaller shows have much more charm and much more of a presence for the guests. I feel that when I went to HellCon, I gained real fans and friends from the community there. Whereas if I go to New York, I know there's going to be people I know, but it's going to be such a blur. I'm far more likely to recall the bad experiences or the negative experiences than the good ones because it's just you get so overwhelmed. I remember it's like last time I was in New York, they finally gave the pros a bathroom, but but it was you had to go through the loading area to get to it. So and some of the security people didn't really get the memo that that's where the pros are going. So getting in and out was like, yeah, I'm a guest. Yes, I have a badge. Yes, I got a table waiting for me to get back to you. All I had to do was pee. Let me go. I mean, it was kind of weird, but it's like if I think about it for a moment, I met some incredible people at New York. I made some wonderful connections, and but your head's because it's so overwhelmed. The stuff that sticks out in your memory are these kind of negative experiences. Whereas I don't have a negative memory of HalCon. I mean, the worst thing I can say about it is I made more money at other shows. That's the worst thing, and that is not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, if the HalCon people want me back, absolutely. Plus, I think I'm a slightly bigger deal now because I went to HalCon last time. I hadn't even done covers for Imaginary Fiends yet at that point. In fact, it's because I met Tim Seeley at that show, and that's where I got the cover assignment for Imaginary Fiends. I figured that with Second Coming and all the other stuff I'm doing, maybe I'm a better draw for Halcon this year. It's I gotta say it's less of a mystery to me because I spent years figuring this shit out. I know what kind of patterns contrast, and I know like right here, right in here. You may not see it on the screen, but right here, I got a whole bunch of parallel rendering up and down, and that's reading as dark as I want it, but it's actually distracting a bit. So I know what I got to do is I got to come in close to the book, get rid of some of these white dots close to the book, and then scribble just across it just to create a slightly different texture and let that fade away into the side of the arm, the wing chair. I think it's called a wing chair. And that allows it to become darker still. See that? And then that allows the rim light on that ear of the cat to pop a bit more. And then I can go in with like this. I'm doing everything with a 3. I can go with a much lighter pen, crosshatch onto that further, and do the same thing here. Every time I do a passive, like a vertical or horizontal hatching, all the little white spaces get smaller and smaller and finer. And the coarse rendering of the cat comes forward now. And you see this really coarse rendering right here. It's creating like a weird hard edge. Now, normally I would hit that with like a 0.5, sorry, a 0.2 or a 0.1. I was thinking half the width of the 3, but just by making that a little smaller, a little finer, all of a sudden it's merging into that shadow, that shadow side of it. And I want a lot of these shadows to connect a bit, like the real darkest part of the cat on the leg here, to kind of connect and then release it as it comes down to being a paw. So I don't mind this being super bound into one shadow form. And a lot of it's time consuming. One should never really do comics to this level of rendering because unless you're taking like a year to do a 48-page book, you'll never finish. But it's you. What's the term that James Gurney still has his blog going? If in case you really want to learn from one of the best painting teachers in the world with all those amazing books. He did a thing on what he called shadow welding, I think it is, where he basically artists used the shadows to connect things into unified shapes for compositional elements. And hey, thanks, Brendan. Hope you're feeling better. That's my son, Brendan Page. He's got a cold. He got food poisoning this week. As he recovers from food poisoning, he gets a freaking cold. My son needs more luck. Send him love. He's also a giant. I don't know if I brag about my giant son enough. He's 6'7". Freaking giant. That's his mom's fault. She's a giant too. She's not giant, but she's Dutch, so she's passes for a giant. There you go. In fact, yeah. So Brendan and I drove down to Baltimore last year. It was a great first road trip we ever got to do together. A real long road trip. We've done shorter road trips together. But I really, honestly, that was one of my best experiences. Too bad you raised a nerdy. Well, you know what? Better than raising a not art kid or an asshole. I mean, you're Brendan. I'm gonna embarrass him. Brendan is easily the best man I know. He is more honest, more ethical, more thoughtful than I could have ever hoped to be. He's an incredible person. I am lucky to be a part of his life. But yeah, so we got to do this nice long road trip to Baltimore, 2-day long drives. We could have broken it up. In fact, if we do it again, we should break it up so we can. I love you, son. But the drive back was amazing. Suddenly we're driving through, I think this is upstate New York, and it's full of fog. And there's all these giant windmills in the hills. And it felt supernatural, like almost like a fantasy landscape with these giant windmills in this massive, foggy, hilly landscape. Oh my God, it was so gorgeous. So I already floated the idea to him. So I'm really hoping. Oh, thanks, Jim. I'm sure he appreciates it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So it's like kind of again, he works in film, so his stuff is like drop everything. You're working for like 7 months nonstop with no breaks. So I'm making plans. If you can't do it, that's okay. I'll do it without him. But I'd much rather do a Chicago drive with Brendan, another Baltimore drive with Brendan. Do that. I also have this great steakhouse there, so I'd kind of like to do that with him because we ate a little too much steak in Baltimore last time. That was wonderful. Yeah. I kind of had thought that. I mean, so much of Brendan's younger years, I was like just working away at so much crap that I wasn't as present for him as I wanted to be. Yeah, we got to do Morton's here too. Maybe we should do that in October. Yes, sadly there is. At least my doctor says there is too much steak. But in fact, Brandon, let's reach out. So as soon as the calf thing pays out to me, I'll take you out for steak. So let's do that sooner. I kind of want to do that. Knew that'd make you happy. Yeah, Morton's was an old school steakhouse, like really classic old school steakhouse. Loved it, thoroughly loved it. Just have to do it again. So good. So Baltimore, I'll probably reach out and see if I can get on the list right away. If possible, I'm going to see if the Here Initiative. I did last time I did Baltimore. I was a guest of the Here Initiative. That was 2 years ago. I'll reach out to them, see if they want me for that. Otherwise, I'll if I go and table for my own, I'll probably still do stuff for the Hero Initiative because Hero Initiative is my, in terms of comics, is my go-to charity. Too many people who essentially created this career for me suffered when they became unpopular, and I think it's really, really important that, especially since so many of them did stories that were based on heroism and self-sacrifice, for those people to struggle. I think it's great. I mean, under Marvel, Joe Quesada threw a lot of support behind the Hero Initiative. So, oh yeah, sure, sushi after, absolutely. Not right after we eat the steaks. I think we'll be like bloated, sitting in the cars, going, "We can't move." Well, there's no reason you can't go to Baltimore twice, right? Fogo de Chao. I think I might have heard of that, but I don't think that's how it's spelled. Yeah, there's Baltimore has a tradition of having really, really good steakhouses. I wouldn't mind trying a few more of them, but Morton's was in the hotel we were at, so of course I think we ate there like 3 times, 4 times. I can't remember. It was. I ate there with a bunch of pros one night. Brendan was doing his own plans there. I think Brendan and I ate there 2 or 3 times on our own. Oh my god! At one point, there was a couple of sides we loved too much, and we went, you know, I can't order again. I think my heart will take it. It was just Morton's was just good, and his service is really, really top notch. So I definitely want to do that again. But you gotta compare 3 of 5 nights. That's true. 3 out of the 5 nights we were in Baltimore, we ate at Morton's. Um, oh yeah, the crab broil. Yes, yes. Got to eat. Baltimore's so good. I have friends. Well, now Brendan has friends too that live in Baltimore. We went out for a crab feast. Got to meet my friend's daughter and her husband, who I'd only chatted with online a few times. Lovely, lovely people. Um, and I'd love to hang out with them and do crabs again because those were delicious. And like all just dipped in Old Bay and just cracking them open and just so savory and delicious. Oh my god, so good. Oh yeah, right. Okay, I don't know if only Cheesecake Factory. I got so much weight I gotta lose. Uh, hmm, if I'm really, really, really good by Baltimore next year, maybe I'll let myself have one Cheesecake Factory night. You start getting old, you really start gotta all those doctor warnings have to start taking care. Otherwise, it's like, oh, I'm going to kill myself with food. So I take better care of myself. My son. Well, there was good one, Jim. Uh, oh my God, airborne calories. Uh, well, if it's going to depend on our timeline of travel. Like if we're driving, we're going to be like we went last year. We stayed an extra day in the hotel because of Halloween. But it turned out all the stuff we wanted to see for Halloween. I had heard that there was like legendary parades in Baltimore. Apparently, that wasn't happening. It was just too close to COVID. Everything kind of just shut down. Um, but the goal, I think, this time is to really make sure. My son's a photographer as well as he works in film for pre-production stuff, production stuff. Sorry. And the goal was to get him some like great opportunities to take photographs. So if we did something like Annapolis, I mean, Annapolis has a lot of great spots for taking photos, as I'm sure anyone from Annapolis knows. I mean, just all the naval stuff. Although you have to make sure let people know that you're Canadian and not from the Taliban. So I got a friend who was like just shooting photographs because he liked the ships, and he got questioned. That was pretty interesting. That was years ago though. But wow, getting a lot of the scribbles done. Oh my God, it's 8:30 or well, practically 8:30 or as it is. All right. Okay, so I got a fair amount. I'll get this done this week. I'll also finish the Etrigan this week, and I got a bunch of covers I got to do this week. And I got a bunch of storyboards to do this week, or layouts I got to do this week. Oh my God, I got so much stuff to do this week, and it's a short week. So terrible. All right. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm inclined to do witch themed streams from now to the end of October, because that was the initial plan. But now that Tales from the Witch House isn't happening, what I might do, turn on the commissions on my big cartel shop, with no expectation of the larger commission, but just like if you want a commission and you want now, pick one up, and then because that's how this stream started. I took commissions and I did the commission pieces on the Sunday. So if you want me to do a drawing for you, and you get to see me working on it live, and then you get, you want to see the video of him working on this? That's there. So I'll have the commissions opened up on my stream now. So if nothing comes in by Wednesday, it's going to be another witchy week. Next weekend, I'll either do an example of like one I talked a bit about, making characters, people who back the book as a character in the history of the witch world. So I might do one of those pieces, so then I have an example of it. I think I'm going to I'll reach out to Bill Sienkiewicz, see if he'll let me do it, make him the first example. I think that'd be kind of cool. Or Jim Zub will probably let me do that. Mignola, maybe. I think he might want to be drawn like as another historical weirdo character. I think he might get a kick out of that. I got some people I can ask, and famous people would be kind of cool. But if someone wants to commission anything, that becomes a subject next Sunday, and I'll do that until October. So all of September, the commissions will be open. At which point I'll shut them down for October, because everything's going to be witches all of October, because it's Witchtober, man. Everything has to be witches. So that'll probably be showing the panels from the story, because every day of the week is going to be more of that short story being told across all my social media platforms. Some of them will be censored, I'm sure, and the uncensored stuff will, of course, be on my Patreon, $1 a month. Join now. And then the whole story will run through all of October. I had a friend suggest that maybe what I want to do for that is I do a mini comic. I do a print run of 1,000 or so black and white mini comics of the Witchtober book that serves as a promo that I can sell. It's both promo that pays for itself and promotes the larger book to be a part of the next year. So that might be something I do. So many months now that I'm adjusting everything. So if you like the books I talked about, there's a link to the Labyrinth bookstore. They probably have all the books I ever talk about in the show in stock. They're based in Canada, so if you're in the US, you probably have better options. I think Stuart Ing is probably a good resource. Of course, Amazon probably has a lot of them too. But if you're in Canada and you want to support a nice local bookstore that really, really leans into supporting animators and artists, Labyrinth Bookstore in Oakville. If you want to support me more directly than liking the video and subscribing to my channel, my $1 a month Patreon is slowly growing every single month. It's going quite well. I'm really happy with it. I think I got an amazing community there. This is being drawn in Eon Artboard, which I link in the description of the video as well. So I think, and I'm on Richard Patience on Instagram if you want to follow me there, because I like Instagram as much as it tries to kill my account when real people sign up, as opposed to people with lots of numbers behind their names. All right, everyone. So next one, hang on a second. Confidence in my work. Oh yeah, there's presenting confidence and being confident. There's what I know I can do, and I'm always trying to push it to the edge. So it's only confident in as much as I've done a lot of these lines before, and I'm replicating them. Every artist, no matter, I think I wouldn't be surprised if in an honest moment, Bill would talk about his own doubts about his work, and that's Bill Sienkiewicz. I think Bill Sienkiewicz is our best living artist right now. um, who's working. There's just, oh God, I'm going to digress. Someone posted a Daredevil carrying Elektra in his arms and they're kissing, but it's almost entirely done in red airbrush, and he doesn't draw or paint where their skin is. So you can tell exactly what's going on in the drawing, but there's almost no lines in it. Some lines describing the legs, but it's just, oh my God, it's amazing. Anyway, I could go on for another half hour talking about Bill Sienkiewicz. So next Sunday, same bat time, same bat place. I'll be drawing either witches or something else. I'll know by Wednesday. I want you all to have the best Labor Day you can possibly have if you're in a country that celebrates Labor Day. Best Monday through Friday if you're in a country that doesn't celebrate Labor Day. And I will see you next Sunday if you're able to make it. Love y'all. Take care. Bye.